Let's get the latest now with SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who joins us live from New York. So, Sherwin, a very good afternoon to you. I know that U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, earlier briefed the media. What can you tell us about what particularly came out of that? I know he said basically there are currently no planned military operations right now against Iran.
Well, essentially, you're hearing from Pete Hegseth and, of course, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They, of course, followed up Donald Trump's announcement last night at the White House with a press conference early this morning in Washington, D.C., Alicia. And I can tell you, Pete Hegseth was asked a specific question if the goal here was regime change in Iran, and he dismissed that. He says that their only aim here was the dismantling of Iran's nuclear capabilities. He said the operation did not target Iranian troops or the Iranian people. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been, quote, obliterated. Many presidents, he said, dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program. No one could until President Trump. Of course, that is already being disputed. Of course, many presidents have had the capacity to deal to address in a military way Iran's nuclear capacities. Many just chose a different path, right? Diplomacy, Obama famously getting that deal, that Iranian deal in 2015. The JCPOA is the acronym we use so fluently these days. And of course, it was Donald Trump that withdrew from that agreement, Alicia. Hegseth also saying the USA does not seek war, but will act swiftly and decisively when our people and our partners and interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the president of the United States and know that he means every word. So the United States essentially saying, now we've bombed your nuclear facilities. You now need to come back to the nuclear negotiating table. We want peace now. There needs to be dialogue now. The question is, will Iran acquiesce to that demand from the United States or not? And the early indications, certainly from the Iranian response, is that they, in terms of the UN Charter, believe they now have the right to respond. And of course, before the U.S. escalation here, the Iranians had made it quite clear that were the United States to engage directly in this conflict, they would then target U.S. military bases in the region. We haven't seen a direct military response from Iran against the United States as yet. What we understand is there are still volleys being sent between Iran and Israel, but no direct hits related to U.S. military bases in the region by the Iranian military apparatus at this time, Alicia.
Mm-hmm. So, Sherwin, we've been receiving quite a lot of reaction from world leaders to these latest developments. I can tell you one about 11 minutes ago, according to The Guardian here, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has announced that it will set up a ministerial contact group in order to establish regular contact with regional as well as international parties to support de-escalation efforts and stop this aggression against Iran. What are you hearing from your side?
You know, one of the most important reactions you've got in terms of global reaction has been from the International Atomic Energy Agency. They were very quick out of the gates here to issue a statement on X. The IAEA can confirm that no increase in off-site radiation levels has been reported at this time. Of course, referring to the 3 nuclear sites in Iran that were hit. The IAEA will provide further assessments on the situation in Iran as more information becomes available. So that, of course, was the big concern here. Radiation levels that could affect the environment, affect the population within the circumference of those 3 nuclear sites. The IAEA saying at this time they have not seen any increase in radiation levels. Of course, there have been a plethora of reactions from around the world. The UN Secretary General overnight, Antonio Guterres, said he was gravely alarmed by the use of force by the United States against Iran. There's no military solution. He said the only path forward is diplomacy. The only hope is peace. This is a dangerous escalation in a region already on edge and a direct threat to international peace and security. You mentioned the Israeli response. I'll just echo that. They hailed the strike. They said the action, this is action that would deny the world's most dangerous regime, the world's most dangerous weapons. Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission President, Iran must never acquire a bomb. With tensions in the Middle East at a new peak, stability must be the priority. Now is the moment for Iran to engage in a credible diplomatic solution. But just to that point, Alicia, right, the calls you're hearing from the Europeans, from the South Africans and others for a diplomatic solution here, the Iranians make this argument. Their foreign minister on X earlier today said, last week we were in negotiations with the United States when Israel decided to blow up diplomacy. This week, we held talks with the E3 and the EU. Remember the talks in Geneva on Friday between the German, British and French foreign ministers, the EU foreign policy chief and the Iranian chief diplomat, when the USA decided to blow up that diplomacy. To Britain and the EU, it is Iran that must return to the table. But how can Iran return to something it never left? So, this notion of calling Iran to, engage diplomatically when Iran's position is that we have been doing that is very much a disagreement between Iran and some of the big powers around the world. Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chair of the Russian Security Council, a former prime minister, former president, said Trump came in as a peacemaker, but he has started a new war for the United States. With this kind of success, Trump won't win the Nobel Peace Prize. Cuba's president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, we strongly condemn the U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities, aggression that seriously violates the UN Charter. And I can confirm also, Alicia, that the UN Security Council will now convene in an emergency session at the request of the Iranians around 3 p.m. local time here in the United States in New York and around 9 p.m. South African time. The Iranian ambassador writing this to the council requesting this meeting in light of the grave and far-reaching consequences of the U.S. savage and criminal actions that undermine international peace and security. We urgently request the council to convene in an emergency session to address the blatant and unlawful act of aggression and condemn it in the strongest possible terms. The only problem is, don't expect anything from a council that is divided. The United States is one of the belligerents here, but it also has veto power on the council. So there's no way this council will reach consensus on action against Israel, action against Iran, action against the United States, because all those players are involved and they both have allies wielding veto powers in the council. So expect very little from the council, expect only a ventilation of the various national positions, including the Iranians, the Israelis, and of course, the United States.
So, Sherwin, maybe talk to us about the fears of a retaliation at this stage, because we understand certain key parts of the states are actually beefing up security in expectation or anticipation that Iran does retaliate.
Understand what this mission involved. This was not just a covert operation that involved a couple of planes. Let me give you a sense. We heard from General Dan Kane, the head of essentially the top military officer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, alongside Pete Hegseth earlier. He says more than 125 U.S. aircraft participated in the mission, including those B-2 stealth bombers, those Batman-looking aircraft. I'm sure you'll know what I mean, Alicia. Multiple flights and fighter jets and fourth and fifth generation fighters, dozens of air refueling tankers, an array of intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft. It was the largest B-2 operation strike in the U.S. history. And if you now take that example and couple it with what the political rhetoric is emanating from the White House, just to quote President Donald Trump again, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed last night. Thank you, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. So essentially Donald Trump thanking himself on social media. And so the real concern is if Iran now asserts its right to defend itself in terms of Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, the United States is warning that there will be even greater pushback militarily from the United States. But what Iran has made very clear is that it will now reserve its right to self-defense and is likely to target U.S. bases within the region. It cannot reach continental United States at this point. So there are many U.S. vulnerabilities within the region. But as you well know, the United States has already positioned military assets. It has sent a strike force into the region, fighter jets, aircraft carriers, refueling planes, thousands of sailors, submarines in the region. So they are poised now. They are on high alert, poised for any Iranian reaction. And the United States has choreographed its response here already.
And to understand the latest there as well, Sherwin, Iranian foreign minister there is set to be meeting with President Putin at this very moment. So we're going to be keeping our eyes fully glued on these developments. But thank you so much for that comprehensive update with our US-based correspondent there, Sherwin Bryce-Pease.